Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the brutal world of ancient Greece, a place where life was as unforgiving as the gods themselves. Picture this: you're standing on a sun scorched battlefield, the air thick with dust and the metallic scent of blood. Around you, soldiers clash in a chaotic frenzy, their spears glinting in the harsh Mediterranean light. The ground trembles beneath your feet as the phalanx formations collide and the cries of the wounded pierce the air. This isn't just a scene from a movie. This was the reality for many in ancient Greece, where war was a constant shadow lurking over every city-state. And let's be honest, if you were dropped into this world, you probably wouldn't survive the week. But hey, that's what makes it fascinating, right? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment with your location and local time. It's always cool to see where you're all tuning in from. Now dim, the lights maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in the heart of ancient Greece, but don't let the romanticized images of white marble temples and philosophers in togas fool you. This isn't a peaceful utopia of art and democracy, it's a land fractured by endless wars, where the clash of spears and the cries of the dying are as common as the olive trees dotting the hillsides. Life here is brutal, and the reason why starts with the very ground beneath your feet. Greece is a rugged landscape of jagged mountains, narrow valleys, and a coastline that splinters into countless islands. These natural barriers make it nearly impossible for any single power to dominate the entire region, so instead, you've got a patchwork of independent city-states: Athens, Sparta, Thebes, Corinth, and dozens more, each fiercely protective of its own turf. But here's the kicker: these city-states are packed in tight like neighbors, squabbling over a shared fence line. Resources like fertile land and fresh water are scarce, and everyone's eyeing the same prizes. The result? They fight. Constantly. Imagine you're a farmer in Athens, that shining beacon of democracy. Sounds idyllic until you realize that democracy doesn't guarantee peace. Athens is almost always embroiled in conflict, either with rival city-states or distant empires. The heavyweight champ of these wars is the Peloponnesian War, a brutal 27-year slugfest from 431 to 404 BCE that pits Athens and its allies against Sparta and its coalition. This isn't some tidy little skirmish, it's total war, the kind that tears through every layer of society. Your fields are torched by Spartan raiders. Your sons are dragged off to row triremes in the Athenian navy, and your city's walls tremble under the threat of siege. Civilians aren't spared. 1 minute, you're harvesting olives. The next, you're cowering as enemy hoplites loot your village, their bronze armor glinting like death itself. But the Peloponnesian War is just one chapter in a blood-soaked saga. Greece is a hotbed of smaller conflicts, city-states brawling over a strip of land, a trade route, or even a diplomat's wounded pride. These wars are fought by hoplites, heavily armed foot soldiers who march into battle in tight phalanx formations. Picture it: rows of men's shields locked together like a wall of bronze spears bristling like a porcupine's quills. When two phalanxes crash into each other, it's a nightmare of shoving, stabbing, and screaming. The air reeks of sweat and blood, the ground turns to mud under a slurry of gore, and the clang of metal on metal drowns out the groans of the fallen. There's no glory here, just grim, visceral chaos. Then there's the external threat: the Persian Empire, a juggernaut with resources that dwarf anything the Greeks can muster. In the early 5th century, BCE Persia launches two massive invasions determined to grind these squabbling city-states into submission. You've heard the Tales Marathon in 490 BCE, where Athenians pull off a stunning upset against a larger Persian force. Thermopylae in 480 BCE, where 300 Spartans and their allies hold a narrow pass against impossible odds. And Salamis, where the Greek navy outsmarts the Persians in a claustrophobic sea battle. These victories are legendary, but the reality is uglier. At Thermopylae, the Spartans fight to the last man, their bodies piled high as the Persians swarm past. Athens burns in the aftermath, the Acropolis a smoldering ruin, the sky black with smoke. For every hero there's a mass grave of forgotten dead. The aftermath of these battles is just as savage. Victorious armies don't just pack up and go home, they pillage. Cities are sacked, treasures looted, and survivors enslaved or slaughtered. Take the island of Melos during the Peloponnesian War. The Athenians demand surrender. The Melians refuse. After a grinding siege, Athens takes the island, kills every man, and sells the women and children into slavery. An entire society erased in a heartbeat. This isn't an outlier, it's standard practice. War here doesn't discriminate. Women, children, the elderly, all are fair game in the name of victory. Peace, it's a mirage. Truces collapse. Treaties dissolve and alliances flip faster than a coin toss. One day, Athens and Sparta unite against Persia. The next, they're carving each other up. Trust is a luxury no one can afford. Your neighbor might be a spy, your ally, a backstabber. You live with one eye on the horizon, waiting for the next plume of dust to signal an approaching army. And here's a wild twist: some Greeks get downright diabolical. Ever hear of ancient biological warfare? City-states like Athens and Sparta aren't above poisoning wells with toxic herbs or hurling plague-ridden corpses over enemy walls. Imagine you're holed up in a besieged city, and a festering donkey carcass comes catapulting in, splattering disease across your streets. It's warfare with a nasty edge, and it shows just how far they'll go to win. The toll isn't just physical, it's mental. Living under the shadow of war means constant dread. You stash grain in secret cellars, sleep with a dagger under your pillow, and teach your kids to run at the first sign of trouble. Every creak in the night could be an enemy scout. Every stranger at the gate could be death knocking. It's a world where paranoia is survival and hope is a fleeting guest. Historians still wrestle with why it all went down like this. The Peloponnesian War, for instance, some call it a clash of ideals, democracy versus oligarchy, Athens' freewheeling ways against Sparta's iron-fisted order. Others dig deeper, pointing to economic rivalries, trade disputes, or the sheer pressure of too many powers in too small a space. Whatever the spark, the flames of war burn, bright, leaving scars that last centuries. So what's it all mean? For the average Greek, life is a gauntlet, and war is the gauntlet's fist. But it's not just soldiers who feel the blow, it's everyone. And that brings us to a grim truth. War feeds another horror of ancient Greece slavery. When cities fall, the defeated don't just lose their homes. They lose their freedom. Men, women, and children are shackled, sold, and shipped off to toil for their conquerors. It's a fate that hangs over every battle, a shadow that stretches into the next chapter of this unforgiving world. The endless wars of ancient Greece don't just end with blood on the battlefield. They ripple outward, reshaping lives in ways that linger long after the spears are sheathed. For every city razed, every army defeated, there's a flood of captives, people who once tilled fields or wove cloth, now stripped of everything but their chains. War isn't just a destroyer of cities. It's a machine that churns out slaves, feeding a system that's as brutal as the conflicts that fuel it. In Section 2, we'll step into the sandals of those who lose not just battles, but their very humanity, and see what life looks like when you're no longer your own. The spoils of war aren't just gold and glory, they're human lives. As the victorious army marches home, they drag with them a grim procession, the defeated now stripped of their freedom, destined for a life of servitude. You are among them, your wrists bound, your future uncertain. The path from captive to slave is a brutal one, and it begins with a single shattering moment, the fall of your city. Perhaps it was Melos, your home reduced to rubble after defying Athens, or another proud polis crushed under the weight of conquest. The cries of your kin fade as you're torn from all you've known, shackled in a line of misery that stretches across the horizon. Days blur into a haze of dust and despair as you're herded like cattle across the rugged terrain. The sun beats down mercilessly, your throat parched, your feet blistered from the unyielding march. Fellow captives stumble beside you, their eyes hollow with shock. Some weep for lost families, others stare blankly ahead, already resigned to their fate. The soldiers prod you onward, their whips cracking like thunderclaps, a constant reminder that resistance means death. The journey is a crucible, stripping away your past life, your name, your status, your hope, sleeving only the raw reality of survival. Finally, you reach the bustling agora of a distant city, Athens perhaps, or Corinth, where the slave market awaits. It's a cacophony of shouts and haggling, a place where human lives are bartered like livestock. You're stripped bare, inspected with cold detachment, your muscles tested for strength, your teeth checked for health. Prospective buyers circle like vultures, assessing your worth. A merchant pinches your arm, deeming you fit for labor. A wealthy matron eyes you for domestic service, her gaze lingering on your weary frame. In the end, a gruff farmer claims you, tossing a handful of coins to the slaver. You're now his property, your existence reduced to a transaction, your identity erased in the clink of metal. Your new master owns a modest farm on the outskirts of the city, and your days become a relentless cycle of toil. From dawn to dusk, you labor under the unforgiving sun, plowing fields, sowing seeds, and harvesting crops. The work is grueling, your back aches from bending over furrows, your hands grow calloused from gripping crude tools. Meals are meager coarse bread, and watered wine barely enough to stave off hunger. At night, you collapse onto a straw mat in a cramped shed, the snores of fellow slaves your only lullaby. The air is thick with the smell of sweat and earth, and sleep offers little escape from the monotony and hardship that define your existence. Your owner is stern, but not overtly cruel, his demeanor shaped by the practical need to keep his property productive. He expects obedience and diligence. Any slackening is met with a sharp rebuke or a lash from his whip. You've witnessed harsher punishments among your peers. A slave who tried to flee was branded his forehead, marked with a searing iron, as a warning to others. Another accused of stealing a crust of bread was beaten until he could barely stand, his groans echoing through the night. You learn quickly to keep your head down, to blend into the background. For visibility invites scrutiny, and scrutiny can lead to pain. As a slave, you have no rights, no voice in the world that now owns you. You cannot marry of your own accord, own even a scrap of property, or make decisions about your life. If your master chooses to sell you, you're powerless to resist. If he grants you freedom, it's a rare mercy, not a right you can claim. Your children, should you have any, are born into the same chains, their futures as bleak as yours. The law regards you not as a person, but as a tula thing to be bought, sold, inherited, or discarded at will. Your body, your labor, your very breath belong to another. The weight of bondage presses heavily on your spirit. You dream of freedom, of the life you once knew, a market where you haggled as a buyer, not as merchandise, a home where your word carried weight. But hope is a fragile thing, easily crushed by the daily grind. Yet in quiet moments, you find solace in the camaraderie of fellow slaves who share your burden in whispered tales of distant lands where freedom still thrives in the simple act of enduring another day. These fragments of resilience are all that remain of your humanity, a faint ember glowing amidst the ashes of your former self. Slavery is woven into the fabric of Greek society, an unquestioned thread in its tapestry. From the sprawling estates of the wealthy to the humble farms of the countryside, slaves are the unseen engine driving the economy. They plant the crops that feed the cities, tend the livestock that clothe the citizens, craft the goods that fill the markets, and serve the households that define social life. Without them, the glittering achievements of Greek civilization, the marble temples, the open-air theaters, the philosophies debated in shaded groves, would crumble into dust. Yet their contributions go unacknowledged, their lives deemed expendable by a society that thrives on their subjugation. Not all slaves endure the same fate, though the chains of bondage unite you all. Some with skills honed before captivity find themselves in positions of relative privilege. A talented scribe might manage his owner's accounts, his quill scratching out sums, while his mind recalls a freer past. A gifted musician might pluck a lyre at lavish banquets, his notes masking the ache of servitude. In rare cases, slaves can earn a pittance and over years buy their freedom, an elusive dream that spreads like wildfire among the enslaved, fueling whispered aspirations that one day you too might walk unshackled. Even the gods offer fleeting respite. Once a year, during the festival of Anthesteria, the boundaries blur. For a single day, slaves are permitted to drink wine and join the revelry, a brief taste of freedom amidst a life of servitude. You raise a cup alongside free citizens, the bitterness of your lot softened by the sweet vintage, yet as the sun sets, the celebration ends, and the chains, both literal and metaphorical, tighten once more. It's a cruel reminder that even in moments of joy, your status remains unchanged. Slaves hail from every corner of the known world: Thrace, Scythia, Asia Minor, even rival Greek city-states like yours. Each brings their own language, customs, and memories of a life before chains, creating a rich but fractured tapestry within the slave community. Your owner exploits this diversity, ensuring that slaves speak different tongues to hinder conspiracy. Isolation becomes another shackle binding you as surely as iron. Organized resistance is a distant dream, crushed by the reality of your scattered origins and the watchful eyes of those who hold your leash. The scale of slavery in ancient Greece remains a matter of debate among scholars. Some estimate that slaves comprised a third of the population in bustling city-states like Athens, their numbers swelling the underbelly of society. Others argue the proportion was smaller, though no less pervasive. The truth lies buried in the sands of time, but one fact is undeniable. Slavery's shadow touches every aspect of life, a silent pillar upholding the grandeur you're forced to sustain. You wonder, as you lie awake on your straw mat, if this is all there is, A life defined by labor and loss, your name forgotten, your story untold. But in the darkness, you hear murmurs of change, of distant lands, where freedom rings true. It's a faint hope, a whisper against the wind, but it's enough to carry you through another dawn, another day of bending beneath the yoke. Yet even as you toil, you catch glimpses of another world, the world of the free, where status is both a shield and a shackle. Their lives, too, are governed by unseen forces, by the weight of expectation and the unyielding grip of hierarchy. As you labor in the fields, you observe the free citizens who pass by, the farmers haggling over grain, the merchants flaunting their wares, the aristocrats cloaked in privilege. Their lives, though not without struggle, are worlds apart from yours, shaped by a complex social ladder, where birth, wealth, and reputation dictate their paths. Even for them, freedom is not boundless. It bends under the rigid rules of class and duty. In the next breath of our journey, we'll step into their sandals and explore how this hierarchy molds their destinies from the humblest laborer to the loftiest elite. You stand in the bustling agora of Athens, surrounded by people from all walks of life. But don't be fooled by the apparent diversity. In ancient Greece, your place in society is everything. From the moment you're born, your social status determines your rights, your opportunities, and even your worth as a human being. It's a rigid hierarchy where climbing the ladder is nearly impossible and falling down can be catastrophic. Welcome to the social ladder of ancient Greece, where your position dictates every aspect of your brutal existence. The elite aristocrats and nobles. At the top of the pyramid, you find the aristocrats, the elite class of wealthy landowners and nobles. These are the people who own vast estates, command armies, and hold the reins of power in the city-states. If you're born into this class, you're set for life. You live in a grand oikos, a sprawling household with slaves to attend to your every need. Your days are filled with leisure activities like hunting, attending symposia, those infamous drinking parties where philosophy and politics are debated, and overseeing your lands. But don't think it's all fun and games. As an aristocrat, you're expected to lead in times of war, risking your life on the battlefield to maintain your family's honor and status. The backbone-free citizens. Beneath the aristocrats are the free citizens, the backbone of Greek society. If you're a free citizen, you have the right to participate in politics, at least in democratic city-states like Athens. You can vote in the assembly, serve on juries, and even hold public office if you're lucky. But your life isn't necessarily easy. Many free citizens are small farmers toiling away on modest plots of land, barely making ends meet. Others are artisans crafting pottery or metalwork in cramped workshops. Some are merchants risking their fortunes on perilous sea voyages. Your status among free citizens varies greatly depending on your wealth and occupation. A prosperous merchant might live almost as well as an aristocrat, while a poor farmer could be just one bad harvest away from debt slavery. The outsiders, medics. Then there are the medics, resident aliens, who live and work in the city-state, but aren't citizens. If you're a medic, you've probably come from another Greek city or even a foreign land drawn by economic opportunities. You might be a skilled craftsman, a successful trader, or a scholar. You can accumulate wealth and even own slaves, but you'll never be a full citizen. You can own land, vote, or participate in politics. You're required to pay special taxes and serve in the military, but you don't enjoy the same legal protections as citizens. Despite these limitations, many medics thrive, their contributions vital to the city's economy and culture. The bottom rung slaves. At the bottom of the social ladder, you find the slaves, human beings reduced to property. If you're a slave, your life is not your own. You could be a prisoner of war, sold into slavery, after your city was conquered, or born into servitude if your parents were slaves. Your master decides where you live, what you do, and even if you live or die. Some slaves work in households, cooking, cleaning, or caring for children. Others labor in fields or workshops, their backs breaking under the strain of endless toil. A few lucky ones might be skilled craftsmen or tutors enjoying better treatment, but they're still at the mercy of their owners. Slaves have no rights, no legal recourse, and no hope of changing their status unless their master decides to free them. A rare occurrence. Privileges and limitations. As an aristocrat, you enjoy immense privileges. You have access to the best education learning from renowned philosophers and rhetoricians. You can afford luxurious goods from across the Mediterranean, wear fine clothes, and feast on delicacies. Politically, you're at the center of power, influencing decisions that shape the city-state. But with great power comes great responsibility and risk. You're expected to fund public works, sponsor festivals, and lead troops into battle. A single military defeat or political misstep could tarnish your family's reputation for generations. If you're a free citizen, your privileges depend on your wealth and occupation. In Athens, even the poorest citizen can vote and speak in the assembly. But in reality, the rich and well-born dominate politics. You have the right to own property, including slaves, and to seek justice in courts. However, if you're poor, you might struggle to make ends meet, especially during times of war or economic hardship. Debt slavery, though officially abolished in Athens, still looms as a threat for those who can't pay their creditors. As a metic, you have the freedom to live and work in the city, but you're always an outsider. You can amass wealth and gain respect for your skills, but you'll never be fully accepted. You're vulnerable to exploitation and can be expelled from the city if you fall out of favor. Despite these challenges, many medics find ways to thrive their contributions enriching Greek culture and economy. For slaves, privileges are few and far between. Your life is a constant struggle for survival. You're denied basic human rights, subjected to physical punishment, and often separated from your family. Your only hope is to please your master, perhaps earning small rewards, or, in rare cases, your freedom. But even then, as a freedman, you'll face social stigma and limited opportunities. Daily life and opportunities. If you're an aristocrat, your day begins with slaves dressing you in fine linen or wool garments. You might spend the morning managing your estates, meeting with clients who seek your patronage, or engaging in political discussions. Afternoons could be dedicated to physical training or attending to public duties. Evenings are for symposia, where you recline on couches, sipping wine, and debating philosophy with your peers. As a free citizen, your daily routine varies. If you're a farmer, you rise before dawn to tend your fields praying for a good harvest. If you're an artisan, you work in your shop, crafting goods to sell in the agora. Merchants might spend their days haggling or overseeing shipments at the harbor. Regardless of your occupation, you likely participate in civic life, attending assemblies or religious festivals when you can. For medics, daily life revolves around their trade or business. You might run a successful workshop, employing both free workers and slaves, or operate a stall in the market. You're part of the city's economic fabric, but always aware of your precarious status. You might form close-knit communities with other medics sharing cultural traditions from your homeland. Slaves' daily lives are dictated by their masters. If you're a household slave, you might cook clean or care for children, your work never ending. Field slaves endure backbreaking labor under the hot sun, their bodies pushed to the limit. Some slaves work in mines or quarries, their lives short and brutal. Your only respite comes during religious festivals, when work might be lighter, but even then, you're never truly free. Education shapes opportunities starkly. Aristocrats can afford tutors or study with philosophers. Free citizens might learn basics, but advanced education is rare. Medics are excluded from certain roles, and slaves get nothing unless a master permits it. Legally, aristocrats and rich citizens wield influence in courts, while the poor medics and slaves face diminishing protections. Marriage mirrors this. Aristocrats wed for alliances, citizens for practicality, medics with limits and slaves not at all. The brutality of the hierarchy. The treatment of slaves is the starkest brutality. Whippings, beatings, and sexual exploitation are routine with masters holding unchecked power. Free citizens, especially the poor, aren't spared debt, could once enslave you, and even after reforms, poverty threatens survival. Medics face expulsion or confiscation in tense times, like Aristotle fleeing Athens. Even aristocrats endure brutality through violent rivalries, exiles, and the relentless pressure to uphold status, connecting to women's world. As you navigate this unforgiving social ladder, you can't help but notice another layer of hierarchy, one based on gender. Within each social class, women face additional restrictions and challenges their lives tightly controlled by the men around them. From the secluded wives of aristocrats to the hard-working women of the lower classes, their experiences add another dimension to the brutality of life in ancient Greece. In the next section, we'll step into their world and explore how being a woman in this society shapes your destiny. Conclusion. So there you have it. The social ladder of ancient Greece, a rigid hierarchy that dictates every aspect of your life. From the privileged aristocrats to the enslaved at the bottom, each rung comes with its own set of rights limitations and brutal realities. Your status determines not just your wealth or occupation, but your very worth as a human being. It's a system that breeds inequality, exploitation, and often violence, a brutal existence indeed. You awake to the faint glow of dawn filtering through the narrow windows of your Athenian home, the air thick with the scent of olive oil and the distant murmur of a waking city. The cool stone floor presses against your bare feet as you rise, the weight of your day already settling on your shoulders. In ancient Greece, your life as a woman is a quiet, often brutal thread woven into the fabric of a society that thrives on male dominance. Your existence is shaped by your social status, your city-state, and the unyielding expectations that bind you from birth to death. The Athenian cage, a life of shadows. Imagine yourself as an Athenian girl, born into a world that greets you with indifference, or worse, disappointment, if your family longed for a son. If you survive the fragile days of infancy, a fate not all daughters share your childhood is a preparation for a singular role, wife and mother. No scrolls or lessons await you. Instead, your hands learn the rhythm of the loom, the weight of a water jar, the art of turning grain into bread. Your mother and the women of the household are your teachers, their voices a constant hum as they guide you through the domestic skills that define your worth. Your world shrinks to the Gynekon the women's quarters, a shadowed space where sunlight struggles to reach. The agora buzzes with life, just beyond your walls. Merchants, haggling philosophers, debating citizens voting, but it's a realm you'll never know. Men outside your family are strangers to you. Their presence, a rare intrusion you're taught to avoid. Your voice is a whisper, your presence a ghost. As you move silently through a home that belongs to your father, then your husband. Marriage comes early, often before your body has fully grown into womanhood. You're barely 13 when your father hands you over a veiled figure in a procession from one house to another. Your husband, chosen for alliances or wealth, is a stranger whose authority now governs your days. Your purpose is clear: bear children, preferably sons, to secure his lineage. The wedding night is a duty, not a choice, and the years that follow are marked by the swell of pregnancy and the sharp cries of childbirth, each a gamble with death. Legally, you're invisible. You cannot own land, sign a contract, or speak in court. If your husband tires of you, he can divorce you with a word, sending you back to your father's house in disgrace. Widowed, you're handed to another male guardian, your fate always resting in someone else's hands. Yet there are fleeting escapes. During the Panathenea, you join other women to weave the peplos for Athena, your fingers threading gold into cloth. At the Thesmophoria, you step outside the earth beneath your feet, a rare freedom, as you honor Demeter with songs and offerings. Spartan strength. Freedom with chains. Now picture yourself in Sparta, where the air carries the tang of sweat and dust from the training fields. Here your life is different, but no less brutal. From childhood, you're pushed to run, wrestle, and dance, your body sculpted not for beauty, but for strength. Spartan society sees you as a vessel for warriors, and your physical vigor is a matter of state pride. You eat better than your Athenian sisters, your frame sturdy from a diet that includes meat and barley, not just bread and olives. You're not locked away. When your husband marches off to war, you take charge of the estate, your voice commanding slaves and overseeing fields. You can own property, sometimes more than the men who are bound to their barracks, and if your marriage fails, you can seek divorce with a boldness unthinkable in Athens. Your daughters inherit this legacy, their futures tied to the land you control. But this freedom is a double-edged sword. Your value hinges on producing sons who will fight and die for Sparta. Fail, and you're a disappointment, your status crumbling in a culture obsessed with martial glory. You're encouraged to speak, even taunt the men, come back with your shield, or on it, you might say, but political power remains beyond your grasp. Sparta grants you room to breathe, yet it's still a man's world, and your strength serves their ends, beyond the polis variations and exceptions. In Corinth, the air hums with trade and wealth, and some women carve out different lives. As a hetaira, you're educated, witty, and free to mingle with men at symposia, your words as sharp as your coal-lined eyes. You might be a Aspasia lover of Pericles, whispering ideas that shape Athens from the shadows. But this autonomy comes at a cost. Respectable women shun you, and your security depends on the favor of powerful men. In Thebes, your days mirror Athens spinning wool, raising children, staying unseen. Yet when war calls the men away, you step into their roles, managing what's left behind. Across Greece, these variations exist, but the pattern holds your life as secondary, your purpose tied to others. The harsh truth of womanhood. Wherever you stand, womanhood in ancient Greece is a relentless trial. Childbirth is a battlefield, each labor a risk of bleeding out or losing the child you carry. You lean on midwives, their hands skilled, but guided more by tradition than science. Disease stalks you, and remedies are scarce herbs' prayers and hope your only shield. Violence shadows your days. A husband's anger can bruise or break you, and the law offers no refuge. Accused of infidelity, you face ruin or death while his affairs are shrugged off. Your honor is a fragile thing, guarded fiercely, yet easily lost to rumor. Even in death, you're an afterthought. Your grave, a simple slab, if marked at all, your memory fading unless tied to a son's deeds. But you endure. In the women's quarters, you share laughter and secrets, weaving bonds as strong as the cloth you spin. At festivals, you find purpose, your chants to Artemis or Hestia, a quiet rebellion against silence. Historians argue over your influence. Some say you shaped households and thus cities. Others see only oppression. The reality is both a life of limits, yet one where your resilience glimmers. As you navigate this unforgiving world, your body battles more than social chains. Illness looms, and healing is a fragile hope, blending superstition with the faint stirrings of medicine. In the next chapter of our tale, we'll step into this realm of health and survival, where gods and herbs offer uncertain salvation. You wake up in the dim light of your Athenian home, the air thick with the scent of herbs and the faint tang of sweat. Your body aches a dull throb that's become all too familiar. In ancient Greece, health is a fragile thing, and healing is a gamble where the odds are rarely in your favor. Disease, injury, and death are constant companions, and the tools to fight them are as brutal as the ailments themselves. This is a world where survival depends on luck, resilience, and a tenuous grasp of medicine that teeters between hope and horror. The fragility of life. Life expectancy hovers around 30 years, but that number hides a cruel truth: many don't make it past childhood. If you're one of the fortunate ones to reach adulthood, every day is a battle against a host of unseen enemies. A simple cut from a rusty blade or a splintered piece of wood can fester into an infection that claims your life. Germs are unknown to you. No one in this era understands the microscopic killers lurking in water, food, or wounds. Instead, you attribute sickness to bad air, or divine wrath, powerless against the real culprits. Epidemics are a terrifying reality. You've heard the stories of the plague of Athens in 430 BCE, when a mysterious fever tore through the city during the Peloponnesian War. Crowded streets became mass graves as thousands perished. Some say a third of the population, while survivors watched helplessly. You can still picture the chaos, bodies piled high, the stench of decay, and the eerie silence that followed. A cough, a fever, a rationing of these could signal the end, and there's little you can do but wait and pray. Medicine, a blend of science and superstition. When sickness strikes, your options are limited and uncertain. You might brew a tea from willow bark to dull a headache, or smear honey on a wound to keep it clean, relying on remedies whispered from one generation to the next. Garlic is your shield against infections, and herbs like thyme or oregano are steeped into tonics for strength. Some of these work honeys' antibacterial properties are a quiet miracle, but others are little more than desperate guesses. If you can afford it, you seek out a physician. Hippocrates, the so-called father of medicine, has begun to shift how some healers think. His theory of the four humors, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, suggests that illness comes from an imbalance in these fluids. To restore harmony, a physician might recommend bloodletting, slicing open a vein with a bronze blade to let the excess spill out. You've endured it, once the warm trickle of blood pooling in a bowl, your head spinning as you hope it's enough to appease your ailing body. Yet not all trust this newfangled approach. Many still cling to older ways, dismissing Hippocrates as a dreamer. Surgery is a last resort, and for good reason. Without anesthesia, you're strapped down or held by burly assistants as the surgeon works. The pain is unimaginable, a saw hacking through bone, a knife carving into flesh, while you grit your teeth and pray to survive. Infections often follow, and even if you make it through the procedure, the odds of recovery are slim. A toothache might lead to a crude extraction, pliers twisting and pulling until the offending molar is wrenched free, leaving you spitting blood and trembling. The role of the gods. Medicine alone isn't enough, so you turn to the divine, Asclepius. The god of healing is your beacon of hope. You trudge to his temple, clutching an offering, a small clay figure, or a few coins, and kneel before his statue. Some swear by incubation, spending a night in the sacred precinct, hoping Asclepius visits your dreams with a cure. You've tried it lying on the cold stone, the flickering torchlight casting shadows as you drift between fear and faith. Once you awoke with a strange calm, convinced the god had spoken. Another time, you left empty-handed, the silence mocking your pleas. Illness carries a stigma too. You've seen how people whisper that sickness is a punishment, a sign of divine disfavor. A neighbor's wasting disease becomes a cautionary tale, their gaunt frame a warning to appease the gods. This belief weighs on you. Every ache feels like a judgment, every recovery a fragile reprieve. In this world, health isn't just a physical state. It's a moral battleground where faith and fear collide. Injury and the cost of war. If you're a soldier, injury is your shadow. A spear graze or an arrow's bite can end your campaign or your life. Field medics, if you can call them that, are rare and ill-equipped. You've watched a comrade clutch a gash in his side, blood seeping through his fingers, while a healer dabs it with wine and binds it with cloth. Sometimes it's enough. Often it's not. The wound festers, the fever rises, and soon he's gone, another casualty of war's relentless toll. Even in peacetime, danger lurks. A fall from a cart, a stumble on uneven stone, a spark from the hearth catching your tunic, any mishap can leave you crippled or worse. There's no hospital, no surgeon on call. If your family can't tend, you're left to fate. The poor fare worse, their broken bodies abandoned to beg or perish in the dust. Every scar you bear tells a story of survival, but each one comes at a price. The brutality of healing. Healing here is as brutal as the afflictions it fights. You've heard of trepanation, drilling holes into a skull to release pressure or banish spirits. The tools are crude, the risks enormous, and the screams of the patient haunt your dreams. You've seen the aftermath, a man with a sunken brow, alive but vacant, or another who never woke at all. It's a desperate act, a roll of the dice with your life as the stake. Mental anguish is even less understood. Madness is a curse, a possession by malevolent forces. You've seen the treatment's chains binding the afflicted blows to drive out demons or exile to dark corners where their wails fade into the night. There's no mercy, only terror and superstition. Your mind, like your body, is a fragile thing, and in this age, both can break beyond repair. Connecting to Spartan discipline. As you lie there, your body aching and your spirit worn, you think of the Spartans. Their world is different. Their approach to health, forged in a crucible of discipline and sacrifice. To them, the body is a tool of war, honed through relentless training and unyielding will. Weakness is a flaw to be purged, not pitied. Where your healers fumble with herbs and prayers, Sparta builds strength through pain and endurance. In the next section, you'll step into their realm, where health is a brutal virtue, and the cost of survival is your humanity itself. You stand at the edge of the Eurotas River, the chill of dawn biting into your skin as the first light creeps over the rugged peaks of Mount Tegidus. The air is sharp, carrying the scent of pine and the distant clang of iron against iron. This is Sparta, a land where every breath you take is a testament to endurance, where the very soil beneath your feet demands strength. Here life is not just live, it is forged through relentless discipline, a brutal regimen that shapes you from cradle to grave. In Sparta, weakness is not a flaw. It is a death sentence, the agoge, a childhood of steel. If you are born a Spartan boy, your life is not your own. At the tender age of 7, you are torn from your mother's embrace and thrust into the agoge, the state's merciless education system. There are no bedtime stories here, no soft lullabies, only the harsh lessons of survival. You are stripped of comforts, given a single cloak to wear year-round, whether the sun scorches or the frost bites. Your bed is a mat of reeds. You gather yourself, your hands bleeding from the sharp edges as you learn that pain is your first teacher. Food is scarce, and hunger is your constant companion. You are taught to steal to survive. But if you are caught, the punishment is severe, not for the theft, but for your failure to be cunning. Your body is honed through endless drills, running barefoot over jagged rocks, wrestling in the dust until your skin is raw, sparring with wooden swords until your arms tremble. Every bruise, every scar is a badge of honor, a step closer to becoming a true Spartan. The elders watch you, their eyes cold and unyielding. They beat you not out of cruelty, but to teach you endurance. You learn to stand tall under the lash, to swallow your cries. For in Sparta, emotion is a luxury you cannot afford. Your peers are both your brothers and your rivals, and the weak among you are culled like defective livestock. Some boys do not survive the agoge. Their bodies break under the strain, or they are cast out deemed unworthy of the Spartan name. The warrior's path, blood and brotherhood. At 18, if you have endured, you graduate to the next phase, the Cryptia. Now you are a shadow in the night sent to hunt the helots, the enslaved population that tills the land and serves the Spartan elite. Your task is simple: to kill any helot who shows signs of rebellion, to instill fear and maintain control. You move silently through the fields, your heart pounding, your dagger glinting in the moonlight. This is your rite of passage, a test of your ruthlessness and your loyalty to the state. By 20, you are a full citizen, a hoplite in the Spartan army. Your life is now the phalanx, the unbreakable wall of shields and spears that has made Sparta feared across Greece. You train daily, your muscles aching from the weight of your bronze armor, your lungs burning as you march in perfect formation. The Spartan diet is meager black broth. A grim concoction of pork blood and vinegar is your staple. It is enough to sustain you, but never to satisfy. Hunger sharpens your focus, keeps you lean and ready for battle. Your shield is your life. Come back with it, or on it. Your mother told you her voice as hard as the iron she forged you with. To lose your shield is to lose your honor, and in Sparta, honor is everything. You fight not for glory, but for the man beside you, your shield interlocking with his, your spear thrusting in unison. This is the Spartan way: unity through discipline, strength through sacrifice. Women of Sparta, mothers of warriors. If you are a Spartan woman, your path is different, but no less demanding. You are not confined to the shadows like your Athenian sisters. Instead, you are trained to be strong to bear children who will one day be warriors. From a young age, you run wrestle and dance your body sculpted for endurance. You eat well better than most Greek women, your frame sturdy from a diet that includes meat and barley. Your role is clear to produce sons who will fight and die for Sparta. You are not locked away. When your husband marches off to war, you take charge of the estate, your voice commanding the helots who work the land. You can own property, sometimes more than the men who are bound to their barracks, and if your marriage fails, you can seek divorce with a boldness unthinkable in Athens. But your value hinges on motherhood. Fail to bear sons, and you are a disappointment, your status crumbling in a society obsessed with martial glory. You are encouraged to speak, even to taunt the men. Come back with your shield. Or on it you say your words, a blade that cuts deep. Yet for all your strength, political power remains beyond your grasp. Sparta grants you room to breathe, but it is still a man's world, and your purpose serves their ends. The cost of discipline. A life without choice. Spartan discipline is a double-edged sword. It creates warriors of unparalleled skill, but it strips away your humanity. You have no choice in your path. The state decides your fate from birth. If you are deemed weak or deformed as an infant, you are left to die on the slopes of Mount Taygetus, your cries swallowed by the wind. If you survive, your life is a series of tests, each more grueling than the last. Love is a foreign concept. Marriage is a duty, not a bond of affection. You wed to produce children, and your spouse is chosen for their strength, not their heart. Your children are not yours to raise. They belong to Sparta. When your son turns 7, you hand him over to the Agag, your face a mask of stoicism as he is led away. You know the hardships he will face, but you also know that this is the Spartan way. Fear is your constant shadow. The helots outnumber you 10-1, their resentment simmering beneath the surface. Every year, you declare war on them, a ritual that justifies their slaughter if they dare to rise up. You live in a state of perpetual vigilance, your hand never far from your sword. The legend of Thermopylae. Glory and sacrifice. The world remembers Sparta for Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans stood against the might of Persia. You've heard the tales, King Leonidas and his men, their shields gleaming in the sun, their spears unwavering as wave after wave of enemies crashed against them. They fought to the last man, their bodies piled high in the narrow pass, a testament to Spartan courage. But behind the legend lies a brutal truth. Those 300 were the product of a system that valued death over dishonor, that saw retreat as cowardice. They died not just for Greece, but for the ideal of Sparta city that demanded everything and gave nothing in return. Their sacrifice was glorious, but it was also a reflection of a society that saw human life as expendable in the pursuit of martial perfection. Connecting to gods and omens. As you stand on the training field, your muscles aching from another day of drills, you glance at the sky. A raven circles overhead, its cry echoing across the valley. Is it an omen? In Sparta, the gods are never far from your thoughts. Before every battle, you consult the oracles, sacrifice goats to read their entrails, seeking the favor of Ares and Athena. Your faith is as much a weapon as your spear, a shield against the chaos of war. In the next breath of our journey, we'll delve deeper into this world of gods and omens where the divine and the mortal intertwine, and every shadow holds a sign. You awake to the sound of a rooster crowing the first light of dawn creeping through the small window of your modest Athenian home. The air is cool, and the scent of olive oil and herbs lingers from last night's meal. Today is no ordinary day. It's a day of sacrifice, a moment when you must plead for the gods' favor to ensure your family's survival. Your heart thumps with a volatile mix of hope and dread as you rise the weight of the ritual already pressing down on you. Stepping outside the city hums with early morning life. Merchants shout in the agora, arranging their wares, while the rhythmic clang of blacksmiths' hammers reverberates through the narrow streets. But your focus is singular. The temple of Apollo awaits where you'll offer a goat in exchange for a bountiful harvest. The path is one you've trod countless times. Yet today, it feels charged with unseen forces. Every rustling leaf, every fleeting shadow seems pregnant with meaning, a whisper from the divine. You pass a cluster of men, their faces taut, listening to a soothsayer murmur about the flight of birds. Overhead, a raven wheels in slow circles, and your pulse quickens. Is it a blessing or a curse? At the temple, the priest's stern gaze meets yours. The goat trembles as it's led to the altar, its wide eyes mirroring your own unease. You hold your breath as the priest lifts the knife, the blade catching the sun's first rays. Blood spills across the stone, a crimson plea to Apollo. You whisper a prayer, but the priest's next words shatter your fragile hope. Peering into the animal's entrails, he frowns. The signs are unclear, he says, voice low. The gods are silent. Your stomach twists. Did you err in your offering? Have you provoked divine ire? The ambiguity clings to you, like damp cloth, a relentless specter in a world where the gods' moods shift like the wind. You trudge home, the priest's cryptic judgment replaying in your mind. The day unfurls with chore, stending the fields mending nets, but the shadow of divine scrutiny never lifts. You feel their eyes upon you, those capricious deities who hold your fate in their hands. In ancient Greece, this is your reality. The gods are not remote saviors, but unpredictable forces, as likely to smite as to bless their whims, dictating your every move. Consider Croesus, the opulent king of Lydia, whose tale haunts you. Seeking the oracle of Delphus' wisdom before warring with Persia, he received a prophecy. If you attack, a great empire will fall. Emboldened, he marched only to watch his own kingdom collapse. The oracle spoke truth, but its truth was a snare. You live with this lesson etched into your bones. The gods' words are riddles, and misreading them can ruin you. Every choice you make, grand or small, bends to divine signs. Generals halt armies if an augur deems the omens grim, scrutinizing the guts of a sacrificed beast over battle plans. A campaign might stall for days, even if the enemy looms, because the gods' favor outweighs all strategy. For you, a farmer, it's no different. A sudden storm might signal Zeus' wrath, driving you to his altar with offerings. A dream of writhing snakes might hint at Asclepius, warning, urging you to seek a healer. Life is a mosaic of portents, each fragment a potential key to survival or doom. This ceaseless watchfulness exhausts you. The physical toil of your days pales beside the mental strain of decoding the gods' will. When your child coughs through the night, you scour your memory. Did you skip a prayer? When blight shrivels your crops, you wonder which deity you've neglected. Every setback feels like a divine reprimand, a personal failing. Peace is a stranger. Your mind buzzes with the need to appease beings you'll never comprehend. It's a brutal existence where rest is a luxury stolen between bouts of dread. Yet there's a twisted solace in this chaos. The gods offer a lens for life's randomness. When a flood sweeps away your neighbor's home, you can blame Poseidon's temper, not blind chance. It's a frail comfort, a way to wrest control from the uncontrollable. But it crumbles fast. The god's justice is ruthless. Actaeon, shredded by his own dogs for glimpsing Artemis Niobe, weeping over her slain children for boasting too loudly. These aren't mere stories. They're cautions etched in blood that one wrong step invites annihilation. You adapt offering prayers like second nature, piling altars with gifts seeking oracles, cryptic counsel. But certainty remains elusive. The gods are enigmas, do everything right, and you might still falter. Flout them, and you might thrive. It's a maddening dance keeping you perpetually off balance. Oddities pepper this life of omens. You've seen augurs perched on hillsides tracing eagles' arcs across the sky. A bird darting right to left promises luck. Left to right spells ruin. It's absurd, yet you cling to it desperate for guidance. Dreams, too, are divine dispatches. You've slept in temples, chasing visions to steer your path and trusting their meaning to priests' deft tongues. Clearer sign, lightning splitting a shrine, a statue dripping crimson spark, citywide terror. You've joined the throngs piling offerings to stave off worse. Even politics bends to this. Before the assembly votes, men wield oracles' words like weapons, twisting omens to sway the crowd. Power lies with those who master the signs, a game you watch warily from the sidelines. Scholars argue over your faith's depth. Some say it's theater gods as symbols, rituals as custom, not conviction. Others insist you truly believe that the divine pulses through your life's veins. The oracles throngs the altars, endless smoke, the omens woven into every act, they bolster the latter. Whatever the truth, the effect is, stark fear of divine vengeance molds you, adding brutality to an already unforgiving world. This dread seeps into human affairs. The gods' ultimate arbiters mete out swift, merciless justice. In their absence, men take up the mantle mirroring that harshness. In the next section, we'll plunge into the brutal realm of ancient Greek justice and punishment, where divine and mortal retribution blur into one relentless force. In the end, your belief in gods and omens is a cruel paradox. It lends meaning to a chaotic world, yet shackles you to fear. Life brims with divine possibility, terrifying, exhilarating, unrelenting. It's a brutal dance with the unseen, where every step risks ruin, and every sign holds your fragile fate. You stand in the bustling agora of Athens, the heart of the city-state, where the air is thick with the scent of olive oil, sweat, and the faint tang of fear. The sun beats down mercilessly, casting sharp shadows on the stone pavement. Around you, citizens mill about their tunics, billowing in the warm breeze. But your attention is fixed on the raised platform ahead, where a man in chains is being led before a jury of his peers. This is the Athenian court, and today justice will be served, swift, brutal, and unyielding. In ancient Greece, justice isn't some lofty ideal carved in marble. It's a gritty, bloody business shaped by the quirks of each city-state and the ever-watchful eyes of the gods. The legal systems differ from Athens to Sparta to Thebes, but one thing unites them: punishment is harsh, public, and designed to keep everyone in line. Step into this world, and you'll see a justice system that's less about fairness and more about fear, power, and divine wrath. The Athenian legal system, democracy's rough edge. If you're lucky enough to be an Athenian citizen male freeborn and not too poor, you get a shot at justice. The system prides itself on being democratic trials by jury, No kings or tyrants handing down decrees. Instead, you face a jury of 501 citizens picked randomly from a pool of volunteers. It's a chaotic scene, no. Lawyers, no formal evidence rules. Just you, your accuser, and a crowd of men who might have had one too many cups of wine at breakfast. Your fate depends on how well you can spin a story. A silver tongue might save you. A stammer might doom you. The charges could be petty theft, adultery, or something vague like imperia, catch-all for anything the gods or the jury don't like. Socrates found that out the hard way in 399 BCE. The old philosopher stood right here, accused of corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods. His defense was brilliant, but the jury wasn't impressed. They sentenced him to drink hemlock, a bitter poison that shut down his body bit by bit while he calmly chatted with his friends. That's Athenian justice, eloquent 1 minute, deadly the next. Punishments range from fines to exile to death, depending on the crime and the jury's mood. For smaller offenses, you might be publicly shamed, paraded through the streets, your crimes shouted out like a twisted town crier's report. For bigger ones, it's the executioner's block. No appeals, no second chances, just the cold reality of a system that values order over mercy. Spartan justice, strength, or nothing cross. Over to Sparta, and justice takes on a whole new flavor. Think less trial by jury and more trial by survival. Spartan laws aren't written down. They're drilled into every citizen from birth. The ephors, 5 elected magistrates, enforce them with an iron fist. Step out of line as a Spartan, and you're looking at exile or a quick, quiet death. The system's built to churn out warriors, not whiners. But it's the Helot Spartas, enslaved underclass, who really feel the sting. Outnumbered by their masters, they're kept in check through sheer terror. Every year, Sparta declares a ritual war on them, letting citizens kill any Helot without consequence. It's a grim tradition, part population, control part, reminder rebellion, equals death. If a Helot dares to fight back, the punishment is savage torture, public execution, their corpse displayed as a warning. Spartan justice doesn't mess around. It's a machine oiled with blood and fear. Divine justice. The gods are watching. No matter where you are in Greece, the gods loom large over every trial. In Athens, you start with prayers to Athena, goddess of wisdom, hoping she'll nudge the jury your way. In Sparta, it's Ares, the war god, whose favor you crave. Oaths are sworn on altars, and lying under oath isn't just illegal, it's a one-way ticket to divine payback. The gods don't forgive, and they don't forget. The myths drive this home. Look at Orestes, he killed his mother to avenge his father, only to be hounded by the Furies-winged terrors who tormented him until Athena stepped in for a trial. He got off barely, but the takeaway sticks. Justice isn't just human business. A bad harvest or a plague could mean Zeus is ticked off and suddenly the whole city scrambling to appease him with sacrifices. Temples overflow with desperate offerings, goats, wine, anything to dodge the next thunderbolt. Punishments, a grisly spectacle. Greek punishments aren't subtle, they're loud, public, and meant to scar both body and soul. Executions are a crowd favorite. You might be stoned rocks smashing into you until you're a broken heap. Or there's the barathron, a pit where you're tossed to die of thirst or cold, your cries ignored by the passers-by above. For the truly despised, it's apotympanism, a strap to a board exposed to the elements, dying slowly while the vultures circle. Tortures on the menu too. Whips tear your skin to ribbons, or the wheel stretches your limbs, until they snap. It's not just about pain, it's about confession deterrence and a good show for the masses. The crowd loves it, half horrified, half hooked, like it's some twisted festival day. Then there's ostracism, Athens' oddball contribution to the punishment playbook. Too powerful, too annoying, the citizens vote by scratching your name on pottery shards called ostraca. Get enough vote 6,000 or so, and you're out exiled for a decade. No blood, no chains, just the quiet brutality of being erased from your own city. It's a polite way to say we're done with you, but it stings all the same. Was it fair? The big debate. Justice in ancient Greece is a meat grinder effective, but hardly fair. In Athens, the system brags about equality, but wealth and status tip the scales. A rich guy with a smooth-talking friend, think hired speechwriter, has a better shot than a poor farmer who can't string two sentences together. Women, slaves, and foreigners. They're out of luck entirely. No rights, no voice. Scholars still bicker over it. Some call Athens a legal pioneer, a place where even a commoner could face his accuser. Others scoff democracy didn't mean justice, just a louder chaos. Non-citizens got crushed, and juries were too easily swayed by bribes or sob stories. Either way, the system worked enough to keep the city humming, but it was no utopia. Justice here is a blunt tool, smashing more than it fixes. The weight of it all. As you watch the chained man get hauled off the jury's verdict, ringing in the air, you feel the heaviness of it. This isn't about righting wrongs, it's about keeping the world from tipping over. The gods demand balance, the city demands obedience, and you just hope you're never the one in chains. In Greece, justice is a beast with sharp teeth, and it bites hard. The crowd thins out the drama of the trial, fading into the chatter of the agora. But then, low growl rolls through the earth, a tremor that rattles the stones under your sandals. Heads turn, eyes widen. The gods aren't done with you yet. Justice might rule the courts, but nature's fury rules everything else. In the next section, we'll plunge into a Greece battered by quake storms and plagues where survival's a gamble and the land itself fights back. You stand on the cracked earth of your families, farm the air thick with dust and the acrid scent of smoke. The ground beneath your feet trembles, a low rumble that sends a shiver up your spine. Just days ago, an earthquake tore through your village, leaving homes in ruins, and the once fertile fields split like a rotten fruit. The sky, usually a brilliant blue, is now a haze of gray, as if the gods themselves are mourning the devastation. In ancient Greece, nature is not just a backdrop to your life, it's a relentless force that can destroy everything you've built in an instant. Earthquakes, floods, and plagues are not mere inconveniences. They are brutal reminders of your fragility, testing your will to survive in a world that seems determined to break you. Earthquakes. The ground's betrayal. Greece sits on a volatile bed of tectonic plates where the Earth's crust grinds and shifts without warning. You've grown up hearing tales of entire cities swallowed by the ground houses crumbling like sandcastles, temples reduced to rubble. The earthquake that struck Sparta in 464 BCE is legendary. Its tremors so violent that they sparked a helot revolt, nearly toppling the Spartan state. You can still picture the Chaos Warriors scrambling to defend their homes, while the earth itself betrayed them, splitting open to reveal chasms that swallowed men whole. But it's not just the physical destruction that haunts you. After the ground stops shaking, the real horror begins. Water sources are tainted, food stores buried, and the injured lie trapped under debris, their cries fading as the hours pass. You've seen neighbors dig through the ruins with bare hands, their fingers bloodied and raw desperate to find loved ones. The lucky ones emerge battered, but alive. The unlucky are mourned with wails that echo through the night. And always there's the gnawing fear. When will the next one strike floods, the wrath of Poseidon? As if the earth's fury weren't enough, the seas and rivers conspire against you too. Floods are a seasonal terror, especially in the lowlands, where rivers swell with winter rains or spring melts. You've watched helplessly as the waters rise, creeping closer to your home, until the muddy torrent bursts through your door, sweeping away everything in its path. Furniture, livestock, even people, nothing is safe from Poseidon's wrath. The flood of 479 BCE during the Persian Wars is etched in your memory. The river Strymon overflowed its banks, drowning Persian soldiers and Greek defenders alike, their bodies washing up on distant shores. It was a grim equalizer, nature's way of reminding you that no army, no matter how mighty, can conquer the elements. For you, a simple farmer, a flood means more than lost crops, it means starvation. Your grain stores rot, your animals drown, and your family faces the lean months ahead with empty bellies and hollow eyes. Plagues, the silent killer. But perhaps the most insidious of nature's weapons is disease. Plagues sweep through Greece like a scythe, cutting down rich and poor, young and old, with merciless indifference. The plague of Athens in 430 BCE is a nightmare you've heard recounted in hushed tones. It struck during the Peloponnesian War, when the city was packed with refugees, their bodies weakened by hunger and fear. The disease spread like wildfire, its symptoms, brutal fever, vomiting skin lesions that oozed and bled. The dead piled up faster than they could be buried, their corpses left to rot in the streets, the stench a constant reminder of death's grip. You've seen smaller outbreaks in your own village fevers that claim children in the night poxes that leave survivors scarred and shunned. Medicine is a feeble shield. Your healers brew herbs and chant prayers, but often it's not enough. Quarantine is a foreign concept, and isolation is a luxury few can afford. When sickness enters your home, you can only watch and wait, hoping the gods spare those you love. The psychological toll. Living under the constant threat of nature's fury takes a toll on your mind as much as your body. Every tremor, every storm cloud, every cough from a neighbor sends a jolt of fear through you. You become hypervigilant, scanning the horizon for signs of danger, listening for the telltale rumble of the earth or the distant roar of floodwaters. Sleep is elusive. Your dreams are haunted by visions of crumbling walls and rising tides. The gods, you're told, control these forces. Zeus hurls lightning, Poseidon shakes the earth, Apollo sends plagues with his arrows. But this belief is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it gives you a way to make sense of the chaos. On the other, it fills you with dread. Have you angered the gods? Is this punishment for some forgotten slight? You offer sacrifices, pour libations, and whisper prayers, but the fear never truly leaves. It's a life of perpetual anxiety, where every natural event feels like a judgment. Survival, a daily struggle. In the face of such relentless adversity, survival becomes your sole focus. You learn to rebuild quickly, to salvage what you can from the wreckage. After an earthquake, you join your neighbors in clearing debris, stacking stones to form new walls, and sharing what little food remains. When floods recede, you wade through the muck to replant your fields, knowing that time is against you. During plagues, you tend to the sick, risking your own health to comfort the dying. Community is your lifeline. In times of crisis, the bonds between families strengthen. You share resources, labor, and grief. But even this has its limits. When resources are scarce, tensions, flare arguments over waterland, or food can turn violent. You've seen friendships shatter over a loaf of bread, families torn apart by desperation. Nature's fury doesn't just destroy your surroundings, it tests the very fabric of your society. As you stand in the ruins of your farm, the earth still beneath your feet, but the future uncertain, you realize that nature's wrath is just one facet of the brutal struggle for survival in ancient Greece. Beyond the quakes and floods, beyond the plagues and famines, lies the daily grind of eking out a living from an unforgiving land. In the next section, we'll delve into the lives of the farmers and laborers whose toil and sweat fuel the grandeur of Greece, yet whose existence is a constant battle against poverty, hunger, and the whims of those in power. You rise before the sun, the chill of the pre-dawn air, seeping into your bones as you pull on your threadbare tunic. The dirt floor is cold beneath your feet, and the faint glow of embers in the hearth offers little warmth. Outside, the world is still cloaked in darkness, but there's no time to linger. Another day of relentless toil awaits. In ancient Greece, survival is a daily battle, and for you, a farmer, a laborer, a craftsman, it's a war waged with sweat blood and the gnawing fear that one bad season could spell ruin. This is the life of the common people, the ones whose names history forgets, but whose labor built the grandeur of Greece. While philosophers debate in shaded groves, and warriors clash on distant battlefields, you're left to wrestle with the earth itself, coaxing life from stubborn soil, or hammering out a living in the sweltering heat of a workshop. It's a brutal existence where every dawn brings the same question: will today be the day you break or the day you scrape by? The farmer's burden, a life tied to the land. If you're a farmer, your world revolves around the rhythms of the seasons, but those rhythms are as cruel as they are predictable. Greece's rocky terrain and thin soil make agriculture a gamble. You till small plots of land, your back aching from the weight of the wooden plow, your hands calloused from years of gripping rough handles. The crops you grow, barley, olives, grapes, are hardy, but they're not enough to guarantee prosperity. A single drought can wither your fields, leaving you with nothing but parched earth and empty granaries. You've seen it happen. Last summer, the rains didn't come. Day after day, you watched the sky, praying to Zeus for mercy, but the clouds stayed dry. Your barley shriveled on the stalk. Your olive trees drooped their leaves, curling in protest. By harvest time, there was barely enough to feed your family, let alone sell at market. You bartered what little you had for scraps, your children's bellies rumbling as they picked at meager portions of bread and watered-down wine. Hunger is a constant companion, a shadow that grows longer with each passing season. And it's not just the weather that conspires against you. Pests swarm your crops, locusts that descend like a biblical plague, stripping your fields bare in hours. Wild boars root through your vines, their tusks tearing at the roots you've nurtured. Even the gods seem indifferent. You've left offerings at the altars of Demeter and Persephone, but their favor is fickle. One year your neighbor's farm thrives while yours withers, and you can't help but wonder if you've slighted some unseen deity. The tools you rely on are rudimentary: wooden plows that splinter under strain, sickles dulled by constant use. Iron is a luxury you can't afford, reserved for the wealthy who hire others to work their vast estates. Urban toil, the laborer's lot. Perhaps you're not tied to the land. Maybe you live in the city where the agora buzzes with life and the promise of work. But don't be fooled. Life here is no less brutal. As a laborer, you haul stone for the grand temples that crown the Acropolis, your muscles screaming under the weight of marble blocks. The sun beats down relentless as you chip away at the rock, your hands blistered and bleeding. The pay is meager. A few obols, a day barely enough to buy bread and oil. At night, you collapse onto a straw mat in a cramped tenement, the snores of your fellow workers a grim lullaby. If you're a craftsman, your days are spent hunched over a workbench, your eyes straining in the dim light of a single oil lamp. You might be a potter, spinning clay into vessels that will grace the tables of the wealthy, or a blacksmith hammering out tools and weapons in the stifling heat of the forge. The work is skilled, but it's also dangerous. A slip of the chisel can cost you a finger. A spark from the anvil can sear your flesh. There's no safety net if you're injured. You're out of work, and out of work means out of food. Your creations feed the economy, yet the profits flow upward to merchants and aristocrats who see you as little more than a pair of hands. The city offers opportunities, but it's also a place of fierce competition. The agora is crowded with vendors hawking their wares, each shouting louder than the last to attract customers. If you're a small trader, you peddle your goods a few jars of olive oil, a bolt of rough cloth, hoping to turn a profit. But the market is fickle. One day, you sell everything. The next, you're left with unsold stock and an empty purse. And always there's the threat of theft. Pickpockets lurk in the shadows, their eyes scanning for an unguarded moment. Lose your earnings, and you lose your lifeline. The noise of the city hammering, shouting the clatter of carts, becomes a relentless drumbeat, a reminder that rest is a luxury you can't afford. Poverty's grip a life on the edge. Whether you're in the fields or the city, poverty is a specter that haunts your every step. In Athens, debt slavery was outlawed by Solon in the 6th century BCE, but that doesn't mean you're free from its shadow. Before his reforms, families were torn apart, their bodies bound to repay loans they could never hope to settle. Even now, in other city-states like Sparta or Thebes, the practice lingers, a brutal reminder that one bad debt can cost you your freedom. In Athens, poverty can still strip you of your dignity. If you can't pay your taxes, you lose your citizenship, your voice silenced in the assembly. You're reduced to a ghost drifting through a society that values you only for your labor. Hunger is your constant companion. You've grown used to the gnawing ache in your stomach, the way it sharpens your senses and dulls your hopes. Meals are simple course, bread, onions, a handful of olives if you're lucky. Meat is a rare luxury reserved for festivals or the occasional sacrifice. Your children grow up lean and wiry, their eyes too old for their years. You watch them play in the dust, their laughter a fleeting reprieve from the grind, and you wonder what kind of future awaits them. Will they inherit your struggles, or will they find a way to break free? The wealthy dine on fish and honeyed cakes, their tables groaning under abundance, while you count every grain, every drop of oil. Disease stalks the poor with particular cruelty. In the crowded slums of the city, where families huddle in single-room dwellings, illness spreads like wildfire. A cough can turn into a fever into a death sentence. There are no doctors. For the likes of you, only folk remedies and prayers to Asclepius, the god of healing. You've seen neighbors waste away their bodies, ravaged by unseen forces, and you've buried friends, too soon their graves marked with simple stones. The air in these tenements is thick with smoke, and the stench of unwashed bodies, a breeding ground for maladies you can neither name nor cure. Survival tactics, the art of making do, yet despite the odds you survive. You learn to stretch every resource to make do with what little you have. In the countryside, you barter with neighbors, your olives for their grain, your labor for their tools. You form tight-knit communities bound by necessity and shared hardship. When a family's barn burns, you rally to rebuild it. When a child falls ill, you pool what herbs and knowledge you have to ease their suffering. These bonds are your strength, a fragile web that holds you together when the world threatens to tear you apart. In the city, you rely on family networks and patronage. A wealthy patron might offer you work or protection in exchange for loyalty, a fragile lifeline in uncertain times. You might also turn to small-scale trade selling handmade goods or scavenging for scraps to resell. Some, driven to desperation, resort to theft or begging, risking the wrath of the law for a chance at survival. Others leave the city altogether, joining bands of mercenaries or pirates, trading one kind of brutality for another. These are dangerous paths, but they offer a flicker of hope, a chance to claw your way out of the abyss, even if it means staining your hands with blood. There's a grim resilience in this life, a stubborn refusal to be broken. You find moments of joy where you can sharing a jug of wine with friends, singing songs by the fire, or watching your children chase each other through the fields. These fleeting reprieves remind you that even in the harshest of worlds, humanity endures. You tell stories of better days, of harvests that filled your stores and markets where your goods fetched a fair price. They're tales of survival, yes, but also of defiance, a refusal to let the grind erase who you are. But survival isn't just a personal struggle. It's a spark that ignites broader fires. The desperation of the masses, the simmering anger of those who toil without reward, often boils over into political turmoil. In the city-states of Greece, power is a prize fought over by the elite, but it's the common people who bear the brunt of their ambitions. The farmer who loses his land to debt, the laborer crushed by taxes, the craftsman cheated by a wealthy buyer. Their quiet rage festers, feeding the unrest that topples tyrants and sparks revolutions. In the next section, we'll step into the chaotic world of Greek politics, where the struggle for survival fuels revolts, coups, and the endless churn of power. Picture yourself in Athens, 431 BCE. The sun beats down on the agora, but there's no warmth in the air, just the sharp edge of fear. The Peloponnesian War has begun a grinding clash between Athens and Sparta that will stretch on for 27 years. You hear the murmur of the crowd, the clatter of carts as refugees pour in from the countryside, their homes torched by Spartan raiders. The city's walls hold, but inside, the real war is brewing, a war of words, knives, and power. In ancient Greece, political turmoil isn't a distant concept, it's the heartbeat of every city-state, a brutal rhythm of coups, betrayals, and bloodshed. Democracies. Fragile dance Athens calls itself a democracy, a place where every citizen gets a say. But step into the assembly, and you'll see it's more like a shouting match with swords waiting in the wings. Men cram onto the Nix Hill, their voices rising over the din of 1,000 others. Today, they're debating war strategy, send more ships to Lesbos, or fortify the walls. The air smells of sweat and dust, and the tension is thick enough to choke on. Leading the charge are the demagogues' men, like Cleon and Alcibiades, who wield charisma like a spear. Cleon, a leatherworker's son, with a voice that could wake the dead, demands aggression, fight or fall. He roars, and the crowd surges with him. Last year, his push to crush a revolt in Mytilene saw hundreds executed, yet here he is still barking orders. Alcibiades, meanwhile, is a wild card, all charm and cunning. One day, he's preaching peace, the next, he's dreaming up a doomed invasion of Sicily. You've seen him work the room, his smile a blade, cutting through reason to stoke ambition. These men don't just shape policy. They shape fates, often with disastrous results. The assembly decisions ripple outward. A vote to raise taxes leaves you scrambling for coins. A call for more troops snatches your neighbor's son away. And when it goes wrong, like the Sicilian expedition, where thousands died for Alcibiades' hubris, the blame flies like arrows hitting anyone in reach. Stasis, when cities turn on themselves. Political strife doesn't stop at debate. It festers into stasis, civil war within the walls. In 401 BCE, Athens saw this firsthand. A clique of oligarchs sick of the democratic chaos staged a coup. They called it the 400 Promising Order, but delivered terror. You remember the night they took power torches flickering in the streets, the thud of boots as dissenters were hauled off. Your cousin, a loudmouth Democrat, vanished into the dark. Days later, his body washed up near Piraeus, a warning carved into his flesh. It's not just Athens. In Corcyra, stasis turned neighbor against neighbor. Democrats and oligarchs tore the city apart, their hatred spilling into massacres. Thucydides wrote of it with a shudder, men dragged from sanctuaries, throats slit over altars, families butchered in their homes. You can almost hear the screams, smell the blood soaking the cobblestones. In Greece, politics isn't abstract, it's personal, and it's lethal. Tyranny's heavy hand. Not every city flirts with democracy's mess. Some turn to tyrants, lone rulers, who promise stability at gunpoint or swordpoint, really. Take Dionysius Fur of Syracuse. He clawed his way to power in 405 BCE, then locked it down with paranoia and steel. His palace was a fortress, his guards a private army. Step out of line and you'd face the consequences: public floggings, executions, whole households razed. A merchant you knew once grumbled about taxes. The next day, his stall was ash, his family gone. Tyranny's appeal is simple: no debates, no factions, just one voice. But that voice demands everything: your freedom, your silence, your life, if it suits him. In a world of constant upheaval, some Greeks take the deal, trading chaos for chains. Persia's meddling fingers. The turmoil isn't all homegrown. The Persian Empire looms over Greece like a vulture, its gold greasing the wheels of discord. During the Peloponnesian War, Persia funneled cash to Sparta, buying ships and mercenaries to bleed Athens dry. You've seen their envoys in the agora dripping with wealth, their offers cloaked in honeyed words. Aid for your cause they purr, but you know it's a leash. Athenian leaders, desperate or greedy sometimes, bitingly to find their city a puppet in a bigger game. This foreign meddling turns the screw tighter. A faction flush with Persian coin might topple a rival, sparking another round of purges. It's a reminder: Greece's chaos isn't just its own doing, it's a playground for empires with deeper pockets and darker plans. Living on the edge. For you, an ordinary Greek, this isn't a history lesson, it's your life. Every day carries the threat of upheaval. A new decree could double your taxes, leaving your children hungry. A coup might see your street torched, your friends dead. The assembly's whims send your brother to war, his shield clattering as he marches off, maybe never to return. You've learned to navigate it, keep quiet, avoid the wrong crowd, pray the gods don't notice you. But even caution isn't enough. The trial of the generals after Arginusae still haunts you. In 406 BCE, Athens won a naval victory. But a storm stopped the rescue of drowning sailors. The assembly, mad with grief, turned on the commanders. 6 men heroes hours before were condemned in a sham trial, executed, and tossed into pits. You stood in the crowd, bile rising, as justice bent to rage. It's the Greek way: power shifts, and someone pays. The numbers tell the tale. This isn't rare. Athens flipped between democracy and oligarchy at least 4 times in a century. Across Greece, tyrannies sprouted like weeds. Sicyon, Corinth Megaraic, a brief brutal bloom. Historians tally dozens of coups, hundreds of executions, countless lives snuffed out in the name of control. It's a grim scorecard proof that political stability was a dream few ever grasped, a brutal normal. So here you are in the shadow of the Acropolis, the war's din growing louder. You dodge the demagogues' barbs, the oligarchs' knives, the tyrants' chains. You're not a player in this game, just a piece moved or crushed as the dice fall. The gods might laugh at the chaos, but you don't. It's your world, and it's brutal. As dusk settles over Athens, the agora empties, leaving only the echo of today's shouting matches. The decisions made here war, peace, betrayal don't stay in these marble halls. They march out to the fields, the ships, the front lines, where soldiers bear the weight of every vote, every coup. In the next section, we'll step into their boots, tracing the bloody thread from political turmoil to the raw, relentless grind of military life. You awake to the sound of a distant horn, the air thick with the promise of violence. Your hands fumble as you pull on your bronze breastplate, its cold weight settling over your chest like a shroud. It's scratched and dented from battles past, and it chafes against your collarbone, but you tighten the straps anyway, better discomfort than death. Your helmet follows a heavy Corinthian piece that covers most of your face, leaving only slits for your eyes and a narrow gap to breathe. The plume atop it sways as you move, a faint echo of pride in a world of grim necessity. You're no born warrior. You're a farmer or a potter, a citizen of Athens or Sparta, dragged from your fields or workshop to serve. Today, though you're a hoplite, and the battlefield is your fate. Your gear is a mixed blessing. The spear in your handite feet of ash wood with an iron tip feels clumsy, its balance unfamiliar to your untrained grip. Then there's the hoplon, the massive shield strapped to your left arm. 3 feet wide, clad in bronze over wood, it weighs nearly as much as a small child. It's meant to protect you from chin to knee, but already your shoulder aches under its burden. Greaves hug your shins, their edges digging into your flesh, and your leather sandals offer little comfort against the rocky ground. You look at the men around you, their faces shadowed beneath their own helmets, and see the same exhaustion, the same dread. You're all in this together, bound by duty and fear. The march to war begins, and it's a torment all its own. You trudge across uneven terrain, the sun climbing higher and turning your armor into a furnace. Sweat trickles down your back, pooling beneath the breastplate, while dust rises in clouds, coating your throat and stinging your eyes. Your feet blister in their sandals, each step a small agony, but you keep moving. The journey might last hours or days, depending on the enemy's position, and rest is a luxury you rarely get. At night, you collapse onto the earth, your shield doubling as a pillow, your body too weary to care about the cold. Rations are meager: a handful of olives, a dry hunk of bread, a gulp of sour wine, and hunger claws at your gut, sharpening the edge of your fear. When you finally reach the battlefield, it sprawls before you like a vision of Hades. The enemy stands across the plain, their shields a wall of defiance, their spears glinting in the harsh light. Your heart thuds as you take your place in the phalanx, pressed tight against your comrades. Your shield locks with the man to your left, his overlapping yours, on the right a human barricade of flesh and bronze. The commander's voice cuts through the tension, and the formation surges forward, a slow, deliberate march toward chaos. The clash comes like a thunderclap. Your phalanx slams into the enemy's shield, crashing against shield with a force that jars your bones. The air fills with the din of war metal, clanging wood, splintering men, shouting and screaming. Dust swirls, choking you, blinding you, until all you see is the blurred shape of the foe in front of you. You thrust your spear, aiming for any gap in their line, but it's like stabbing stone. The enemy pushes back their weight, a relentless tide, and you're caught in the crush, struggling to breathe, to stand, to fight. This isn't the elegant combat of poets' tales. It's a brutal, grinding, sloga shoving match where strength and endurance matter more than skill. Your arms burn from holding the shield aloft. Your legs tremble from the strain. Sweat stings your eyes, but you can't wipe it away. Your hands are too busy keeping death at bay. A spear grazes your thigh, a shallow cut that bleeds hot and fast, but there's no time to falter. To your left, a man falls, his scream cut short as a blade finds his chest. You step over his body, closing the gap, your mind numb to anything but the next thrust, the next push. The battle stretches on a blur of pain and noise. Your spear snaps under the strain, forcing you to draw the short sword at your hip, a clumsy weapon for a clumsy fight. You hack and stab your movements, desperate, driven by instinct more than training. Then a shift the enemy's line wavers, a crack forming in their wall. Your phalanx presses the advantage, driving forward with renewed fury. The foe breaks, scattering across the field, and for a fleeting moment you taste triumph. But it's a bitter thing, soured by the carnage at your feet. The aftermath is a different kind of hell. The ground is a tapestry of blood and bodies, the air heavy with the stench of death. You stumble through the wreckage, your legs weak, your breath ragged. A friend lies among the fallen, his eyes glazed, a spear jutting from his side. You kneel beside him, but he's gone, another name to whisper in the dark. The wounded cry out, some begging for water, others for a swift end. You bind what wounds you can, using torn cloth and trembling hands. But many will die slowly, their strength bleeding out with their blood. The dead are stripped of their gear, armor, weapons, anything of value, a grim harvest born of necessity. If you're a Spartan, this life is all you've ever known. From childhood, the agoge shaped you, a relentless crucible of beatings, hunger, and endless drills. You were taught to feel no fear, to show no weakness, to live and die for the man beside you. Your shield is your honor, your spear, your purpose. Return with it or on it. Your mother said her words, a steel thread woven into your soul. Yet even you, hardened as you are, feel the weight of war. The terror of the phalanxes crush the ache of loss when a brother falls. For you, this isn't a duty. It's your existence, a cycle of training and bloodshed without end. As dusk falls, painting the battlefield in shades of red and shadow, you stand among the survivors. Your body is a map of bruises and cuts, your mind a haze of exhaustion, but you're alive. The war isn't over, more battles loom. More marches, more death, but for now, you draw a shuddering breath and turn away from the slaughter. Home feels distant, a dream obscured by dust and blood, and even there, peace is an illusion. The games await brutal contests where men spill blood for sport, and the roar of the crowd replaces the clash of spears. The battlefield fades as you limp back to camp, every step a testament to your survival. But rest is fleeting in this world. Beyond the horizon, the arena's call-blood-stained sands where warriors become gladiators, trading the chaos of war for the spectacle of the games. In the next section, well enter that savage world, where the brutality you've endured finds new form, and the fight continues under a different sun. You stand at the edge of the arena sand, crunching under your sandals, the heat of the midday sun, pressing down on your shoulders like a heavy hand. The air hums with anticipation, thick with the mingled scents of sweat blood and the faint metallic tang of sharpened steel. Above you, the crowd surges, a roaring living beast, their voices rising and falling in waves that crash against the stone walls. This is no mere pastime. This is the heart of a world where glory and death are two sides of the same coin, and you're caught in its grip. In ancient Greece, the games are a brutal tapestry, stitching together athletic triumph and savage spectacle. From the sunlit fields of Olympia to the blood-soaked sands of later arenas, these contests pulse with the energy of a society that reveres strength, courts danger, and dances with mortality. Here, you'll feel the weight of history in every cheer, every clash, every drop of blood that stains the ground. The Olympic Games. Honor and hidden brutality. Picture yourself in 796 BCE, the air sharp with pine and dust as the Olympic Games unfold in the sacred valley of Olympia. It's a festival of the gods, a tribute to Zeus, but don't let the hymns and olive wreaths fool you. There's a raw edge here that cuts deep. You're watching the wrestlers first, their oil-slicked bodies locked in a struggle that's as much art as it is violence. A snap echoes through the air. A broken finger, maybe a wrist, and the crowd roars its approval, hungry for more. Then comes pancration, the all-in fight, where rules are scarce. You wince as a fighter's fist slams into another's jaw, see the spray of sweat and blood as a knee drives into a gut. Only biting and eye gouging are forbidden, and even then, the referees have to pry the combatants apart. The victor staggers to his feet, bruised and triumphant, while the loser lies still, a broken offering to the gods of competition. Chariot races follow, and you're deafened by the thunder of hooves and the splintering crack of wooden wheels. A driver misjudges a turn, and his cart shatters. Horses scream, the crowd gasps, and you see him dragged beneath the wreckage, a smear of red against the dirt. Victory here is a crown of leaves, but survival is the truer prize, and not everyone claims it. Gladiatorial games. Steel and survival time shifts, and now you're in a later era, standing in a towering amphitheater where the stakes are higher and the blood flows freer. The gladiatorial games have taken root, a dark evolution of the Greek spirit. You watch a Myrmidon, his heavy shield glinting face off, against a nimble Thraex wielding a curved sword. Their clash is a symphony of metal clang scrape thud, and then a cry as the Thraex blade finds flesh. Blood arcs through the air, and the crowd leaps to its feet, their cheers a primal howl. These fighters are a gallery of archetypes. The Retiarius, with his net and trident the Secutor, in pursuit, the Hoplomachus with his spear and dagger. They train in Ludice's brutal camps, where the whip cracks as often as the swords, forging them into weapons of flesh and bone. Some are slaves, others captives, a few mad enough to volunteer. You've seen their scars, their grim resolve, and you know that for every name chanted by the crowd, countless others vanish into oblivion. Women fight too, a rare but electrifying sight. You catch a glimpse of Onia Gladiatrix, her hair bound tight, her sword a blur. The crowd's reaction is a mix of shock and thrill, their shouts louder for her than for many men. She's a fleeting figure, but her presence lingers a testament to the arena's relentless hunger for novelty. Beasts and battles, spectacles of slaughter. The games stretch beyond human combat. You turn to the venations, where the air grows heavy with the musk of wild beasts. A lion paces its roar, rattling your chest before a bestiarius steps forward, spear in hand. The fight is swift, and one-sided. The cat leaps, the spear bites, and the sand darkens with blood. Elephants bears leopards, all shipped from distant lands fall, in droves their deaths, a gaudy display of dominance over nature. Then come the Nomachii naval battles, staged in flooded arenas. You marvel at the sight ships rocking on artificial waves, their crews of doomed men hacking at each other with real blades. Water churns red bodies sink beneath the surface, and the crowd watches in rapt silence, enthralled by the scale of it all. It's war-turned theater, a grotesque marvel that leaves you both awed and hollow. A tyrant's game Commodus in the spotlight. Amid the chaos, one figure stands out, Emperor Commodus, a ruler who craved the arena's spotlight. You've heard the stories clad in a lion's pelt. He strides onto the sand club, raised like a god of myth. He fights, he wins, hundreds of times they say, but you see the truth in the dazed eyes of his opponents, the wooden swords they clutch. It's a rigged game, a tyrant's ego dressed as valor, yet the crowd cheers their voices, a mask for the unease that gnaws at them. Commodus is a spectacle within a spectacle, a reminder that power here is as much performance as it is force. Reflections in the sand, a brutal legacy. As dusk falls, the arena quiets the days, bloodshed fading into shadow. You step back, ears ringing with the echoes of the crowd, hands still trembling from the intensity of it all. These games are no mere diversion. They're a mirror of Greek life reflecting a culture that prizes strength, worships glory, and doesn't flinch from cruelty. Scholars argue over their meaning, a training ground for war, a rite to appease the gods, perhaps both a bloody bridge between the mortal and the divine. The Olympic Games began in 776 BCE, a fixed point in history, but their evolution into these later gorier contests speaks to something deeper, a society that thrives on the edge where every victory is shadowed by loss. The games hold the masses in thrall, a distraction from hunger and unrest. But you sense the cracks, forming the whispers of defiance that will one day spill over. The last cries of the crowd fade into the night, leaving you with the hum of a city settling into uneasy rest. The brutality of the arena doesn't end at its gates. It seeps into the streets, the homes, the very bonds that tie people together. In the next section, Family Ties, you will step into a world where the same rules of survival and dominance shape the hearth, where love and loyalty are forged in a crucible of duty and discipline, and where the shadow of violence is never far away. The last cries of the crowd fade into the night, leaving you with the hum of a city settling into uneasy rest. The brutality of the arena doesn't end at its gate. It seeps into the streets, the homes, the very bonds that tie people together. In ancient Greece, family is not a sanctuary of warmth and safety. It's a battleground where duty, honor, and survival clash with unrelenting force. Here, love is often a luxury, and loyalty is forged in a crucible of expectation and discipline. As you step into this world, you'll find that the ties that bind can also strangle, and the weight of family is as heavy as any shield carried into war. Arranged marriages, a transaction in flesh. You stand in the dimly lit courtyard of your father's house, the air thick with the scent of incense and the murmur of prayers. Today, you are to be married, but there is no joy in your heart, only a gnawing dread. At just 14, you are little more than a child, your body still growing into womanhood. Yet you are being handed over to a man twice your age, a stranger chosen not for love, but for the alliances and property he brings. Your face is veiled, your hands trembling as you clutch the folds of your white gown. The ceremony is brief, the vows spoken in a haze of unfamiliar words. You are now his bound, by law and custom, your future as uncertain as the flickering flame of the hearth. In ancient Greece, marriage is a transaction, a pact between families to secure wealth status or political favor. For girls like you, it's a rite of passage that comes too soon, a severing of childhood in a single irrevocable moment. Your husband, often in his 30s, is a man hardened by life. His expectations clear. You are to be obedient to manage his household, and above all, to bear him sons. Love, if it comes at all, is a distant hope, a fragile bloom in a garden of duty. The pressure to produce heirs, a woman's. Months pass, and you find yourself kneeling before the household altar, your hands clasped in desperate prayer. The gods' faces stare back impassive as you whisper pleas to hear a goddess of marriage and childbirth. Your belly is still flat, your womb empty, and with each passing cycle, the weight of expectation grows heavier. In this world, a woman's worth is measured by her ability to produce heirs, preferably sons, to carry on the family name and honor. Failure is not just a personal sorrow. It's a stain on your reputation, a crack in the foundation of your marriage. You've seen it happen to others. A neighbor, barren after years of trying, was cast aside by her husband, divorced, and sent back to her father's house in shame. Another, who bore only daughters, watches as her husband takes a concubine, hoping for a male heir. The whispers follow them like shadows, their worth diminished in the eyes of society. You swallow your fear, hoping that tonight when your husband comes to your bed, the gods will finally grant you favor. Infanticide, the cruelest cut. But even the birth of a child is no guarantee of joy. You stand at the edge of a windswept hill, the cries of your newborn daughter fading into the distance. Your husband's face is a mask of stone as he turns away the decision made. The child is weak, her cries too faint, and in a world where survival is uncertain, she is deemed unfit. Exposure, the practice of leaving unwanted infants to die, is a brutal reality, a custom as old as the hills themselves. Girls especially are vulnerable, their lives deemed less valuable than those of boys who can fight and work the land. You've heard the justifications: the family cannot afford another mouth to feed, the child is deformed, the omens are bad. But none of it eases the ache in your chest as you walk back to the house, your arms empty, your heart shattered. The gods, you're told, will take her, but you know the truth. She will perish alone, her tiny body succumbing to the cold or the jaws of wild beasts. It's a cruelty that scars the soul, a reminder that in this world, even the bonds of blood can be severed without mercy. Women's and roles confined to the hearth. Your days are a blur of endless tasks, each one a thread in the fabric of your family's survival. From dawn to dusk, you toil spinning wool into thread, weaving cloth for garments, grinding grain into flour, tending the hearth where the fire must never die. The home is your domain, but it's also your prison. You are the keeper of the oikos, the household responsible for its smooth running and the honor of its name. Step outside and you risk gossip, your reputation hanging by a thread as delicate as the one you spin. In Athens, Women are confined to the gynekon, the women's quarters, their lives hidden from the eyes of men. You venture out only for festivals or funerals, your face veiled, your voice silenced. Your world is small, bounded by walls and expectations, your dreams smothered beneath the weight of duty. In Sparta, you have more freedom and courage to exercise, to be strong. But even there, your purpose is clear: to bear warriors, to raise sons who will die for the state. Your strength is not for yourself, it's for the men who rule. Men's burdens, the weight of honor. But men, too, bear their own brutal burdens. As the head of the household, your husband is the provider, the protector, his honor, tied to his ability to keep his family fed and respected. He rises before dawn, his back already aching from years of labor, and sets out to the fields or the workshop. The land is unforgiving, the crops meager, and every day is a gamble against drought pests or the whims of the market. Failure is not an option. His family survival depends on his success. And the shame of poverty is a specter that haunts his every step. In times of war, he is called to serve, leaving you to manage the household alone. The shield he carries is heavy, but the weight of expectation is heavier still. He must return victorious, or not at all, his honor intact, his family's name unsullied. The pressure is relentless, a constant drumbeat in his mind, driving him to push harder, to risk more, to bury his fears beneath a mask of stoicism. Education and discipline, forging the next generation. Your son, barely 7, stands before you, his small frame trembling as he prepares to leave for the Agog. In Sparta, education is not a matter of scrolls and lessons. It's a brutal forging of body and spirit, designed to turn boys into warriors. He will endure beatings, starvation, and endless drills, his cries swallowed by the night as he learns to kill or be killed. You watch him go, your heart aching, knowing that this is the price of survival in a world that values strength above all else. Even in Athens, where education is milder, discipline is harsh. Boys are taught to recite Homer, to wrestle and run, but also to obey without question. A misstep earns a lash from the tutors, wrought a reminder that weakness is not tolerated. Your daughter, meanwhile, learns only what she needs to be a wife: how to weave, how to manage slaves, how to bear children in silence. Her world is narrower still, her future a mirror of your own. Family honor, a fragile shield. Above all honor is the currency that binds your family together, and the blade that can tear it apart. A slight real or imagined can ignite a feud that spans generations, locking your family in a cycle of revenge. You've seen it happen: a neighbor's son insults your husband at the agora, and suddenly the air crackles with tension. Words turn to blows, blows to blood, and before long, 2 families are locked in a vendetta that will claim lives on both sides. In Athens, the law offers some recourse, but it's a double-edged sword. A husband can kill a man caught in adultery with his wife, but only if he acts in the heat of the moment. Wait too long, and the courts will judge him a murderer. The balance is precarious, and one wrong move can bring ruin. You walk a tightrope, your every action scrutinized, your family's name a fragile thing that must be guarded at all costs. The psychological toll. A life of silent suffering. The weight of these expectations is a burden you carry in silence. Your mind is a battleground torn between duty and desire, between the need to conform and the ache for something more. You swallow your fears, your sorrows, your dreams, burying them deep, where they fester like wounds. There is no outlet for your pain, no one to hear your cry, only the gods, who remain silent. You've seen the toll it takes on others. A friend unable to bear the shame of a barren womb takes her own life, her body found hanging from the rafters. A brother, broken by the loss of his honor, drinks himself into oblivion, his once proud name now a whisper of pity. The brutality of family life is not just physical, it's a slow erosion of the soul, a grinding down of hope until only duty remains. As you lie down to sleep, the weight of your family's expectations pressing on your chest like a stone you can't help, but think of the end that awaits us all. The struggles of this life-arranged marriages, the pressure for heirs, the relentless pursuit of honorary, but a prelude to the final journey where death's grim rituals and the uncertain hope of the afterlife loom. In the next section, we'll confront that inevitable fate, stepping into a world where the brutality of life gives way to the mysteries of what lies beyond. As you lie down to rest, the echoes of the day's trials linger in your mind, the clashing of swords from the battlefield, the weight of honor and glory, the fleeting victories that define a warrior's life. Yet beneath it all, a quieter truth stirs every triumph. Every defeat leads inexorably to the same end. Death waits patiently, its shadow cast long across the sunlit plains of Greece. In this final chapter, we step beyond the clamor of the living world into the solemn rites and shadowed realms that mark the soul's last journey. The day begins like any other, the sun rising over the hills. But a stillness grips your home in Athens. Your brother, struck down in battle, lies motionless on a wooden table in the courtyard. His armor is gone, his body cleansed of blood and dirt by trembling hands. The women of the house move with practiced grace, their tears falling silently as they wash him with water drawn from the spring, anointing his skin with olive oil and myrrh. The air grows thick with the scent, sharp and sweet, cutting through the faint metallic tang of death that clings to him still. They dress him in a white tunic, a shroud for the journey ahead, and place a single obol on his tongue, a small cold coin to pay Charon, the grim ferryman who waits at the river Styx. By midday, the funeral procession forms. You join the mourners, your chest tight with grief, as the bier is lifted onto the shoulders of kinsmen. The streets of Athens fall quiet, the usual bustle replaced by the mournful wail of hired lamenters, their voices rising and falling like waves against a rocky shore. Flutes play a haunting tune, their notes weaving through the cries, while the scent of burning incense trails behind you, a thin veil of smoke rising to the gods. Neighbors pause, heads bowed as you pass the potter at his wheel, the fishmonger at his stall-leek, offering a silent nod to the great equalizer that claims king and slave alike. At the burial ground beyond the city walls, the earth yawns, open a dark wound, ready to receive its due. The body is lowered gently, or perhaps burned, depending on the customs of your time, and place flames crackling as they consume the pyre, sending sparks skyward like fleeting prayers. You pour wine into the soil, an offering to Hades, and watch as a goat is sacrificed, its blood staining the ground a deep crimson. The priest intones a final blessing, his voice steady, despite the weight of the moment, and you scatter dirt over the grave, each handful a farewell to the brother you once knew. But the journey does not end here. The soul, they say, must now descend to the underworld, guided by Hermes, the swift-footed messenger of the dead. You've heard the tales, whispered around the hearth. The soul crosses the Styx Charon's oar, slicing through black waters, until it stands before the three judges, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Aeacus. Their eyes are unyielding, their judgment absolute. For the heroic and virtuous Elysium Baconsa golden land of eternal peace, where the air is sweet with blossoms and the shades of great warriors laugh beneath a radiant sky. For the wicked Tartarus waits a abyss of suffering where the guilty are bound in chains or condemned to endless toil. Most, however, find neither paradise nor punishment. The asphodel meadows stretch wide and gray, a twilight realm, where ordinary souls drift their lives reduced to echoes. They drink from the river Lethe, its waters washing away memory, leaving only a vague sense of what once was. You wonder where your brother's shade will wander among the blessed, the forgotten, or the damned. The question lingers heavy and unanswered, a thread that ties the living to the dead. These beliefs are not mere stories. They shape your everyday. To live with honor is to court a better fate beyond the grave, to earn a place in Elysium through deeds that echo in song. You've seen men pour libations to the gods, their hands shaking with fear of divine wrath, and others carve their names into stone, hoping to be remembered when their bodies are ash. Death's presence is a constant hum beneath the surface of life, a reminder that even in a world of beauty and strife, all paths converge at the same shadowed gate. Not everyone agrees on what lies beyond. In the Agora, philosophers clash. Plato's voice rings out, promising the soul's rebirth, a cycle of learning and return, while Epicureans shrug, calling death a dreamless sleep, an end to all sensation. You've lingered at their debates, torn between hope and doubt, but the truth remains veiled, a mystery that no mortal can unravel until the moment comes. The days after the burial are quiet, the house emptier than before. You bring offerings to the grave, honey cakes, a jug of wine, your whispers mingling with the wind. At night, dreams of your brother haunt you, his figure faint and fleeting, a shade caught between worlds. The Greeks believe in ghosts, restless spirits, who linger when rites go unfulfilled, and you wonder if he watches, still bound by love or longing. Death's brutality is never far. In war, bodies rot on distant fields. In plague, they pile in unmarked pits, the air rancid with decay. You recall the plague of Athens, a nightmare of mass graves and abandoned rites, a chaos that mocked the dignity of the dead. Yet for some, death is a mercy, an end to pain, a release from a life of toil. You've seen the elderly greet it with calm, their breaths slowing, as if welcoming an old friend. The night settles over Athens, a soft cloak of darkness that quiets the world. You lie on your pallet, the day's sorrows fading into the stillness, the stars above, a silent witness to all that is past. The rites are done, the offerings made, and your brother's fate rests now in hands greater than yours. The underworld is a distant murmur, its secrets tucked beyond reach, and for tonight, that is enough. Feel the coolness of the air against your skin, the gentle rise and fall of your chest. The fears of the day, the what-ifs, the unknown slip away, carried off by the breeze that rustles the olive trees outside. Life goes on, a fragile thread woven through time, and you are part of it, still here beneath the vast sky. Let the shadows of the dead rest. Let the worries of tomorrow wait. The world grows softer, quieter, until all that remains is the steady rhythm of your breath, a lullaby of the living.